Okay, today is July 17, 2024, and it's time for our mid-month garden tour. I actually did some recording yesterday, but I was really tired and they didn't turn out very well. Did a lot of weed whacking yesterday, finally, and today might actually be dry enough to do some lawn mowing. We shall see. So let's start with the pots. Here we have a single Magda squash. This is actually from the second planting. The first ones, none came out. The second time, one came out and then it got squished by a kitten, because there's a kitten who likes this pot, and we have one surviving. And here we have some green zucchini. 2 out of 3 seeds sprouted. And this is where I had the white scallop patty pan squash. I put this over here to try and protect it from the cats, but it doesn't matter because nothing germinated. We have a 0 germination rate for the white scallop squash. Now, let's see if I can get into the old kitchen garden here. I just topped up the cat food, so there's cats all over the place. I don't want to interrupt them. Anyhow, so here we are, the old kitchen garden. Oh my goodness, that's Robbie. Her brother is Cole. Their mother is the one there. That's Broccoli. You can just see her in there. I had onions in here, but the cats keep lying on it. Is Robbie gonna let me pet her? Can I let me pet you? Can I pet you? Oh my goodness. Almost. Okay, so this is our forme decor tomatoes. We actually have tomatoes forming. Got some larger ones over here I can show you. And that's Broccoli growling at me. Hi, mom and daughter. They're pretty feral. And there are onions planted in between. As you can see, the onions are getting squished. I've got some shallots in front that are doing a little bit better. And then there's a garlic I planted in the fall that's in the middle. You can just barely see them. Over here, a little garlic bed. This one is doing fine. I topped the walking onions because I don't want them walking any further. I missed one. My daughter's daffodils did not do well this year. And I managed to find a couple of her irises I've marked out, but they're struggling. They've never really done anything since they were planted. We had good rhubarb this year in both this bunch and the ones at the other end. Those ones tend to be, I guess, shaded out. They've never really done well until this year. Over here, we have the black cherry tomatoes. And they're getting nice and tall up here, up into the lilacs. And if I can get past the jungle, you can see some cherry tomatoes forming. The onions I planted in here are also being squished. We've got the strawberries that we grew from seed. Nice, big, strong, healthy plants. They're very small strawberries that don't actually taste any better, so I'll probably transplant them someplace where they can grow wild, but I'm not sure where yet, and then we'll use the space for something more productive. We have thyme over here. This is self-seeded. Oh, look at that little tiny frog. Self-seeded chamomile with little frog. And some onions trying to survive. The loofah is only just now starting to grow. We had a very cool, wet spring and had some heat waves. And I guess that was, well, they won't have enough time to develop though. But I like them anyways. And got more garlic over here. And a self-seeded tomato that I'm just leaving. This is the clearest we've had back here since last year. And then we have more garlic in this bed over here. And we can get through, check out Here we are. Here we have the San Marzano tomatoes. They're doing all right. And the mint. You can see we actually have some tomatoes forming. And this bed is doing all right. The mint actually recovered quite a bit. It had, I don't know what these are, but they were choking out absolutely everything. And these mint were originally from my late grandmother. So we want to keep some of those from transplanting. And I gave the chives a haircut because they were getting completely out of control and actually choking out this one tomato at the end here. So that's this bed over, this old kitchen garden over here. These poppies and dill and whatnot are self-seeded for many years, and it needs another weeding as well. Hello, baby. With all the rain that we've been having, I'm happy to see that we have a lot of grapes growing in here. And hopefully, this year, we'll actually be able to harvest them. We had a lot of grapes last year as well, and then they just disappeared overnight. And this trellis was knocked over. The raccoons basically ate everything overnight. So we'll have to make a point of trying to harvest them before the raccoons get them. Alright, I was able to weed whack these paths as well, so finally, on both sides of the fence. And here we have these ones are the chocolate cherry tomatoes. I put this netting here to protect it from being smothered by elm seeds, and just left it because, well, it's not doing any harm, and it does protect them a little bit from the elements. And you can see, where can we see? We do have some chocolate cherry tomatoes forming in here. And then at the very end, we've got a single yellow zucchini. This is a variety called Goldie. And here we have the reworked bed that we planted potatoes in. This little section here is the red thumb fingerling potatoes that we had left over from last year. Just shoved them in, simply because we had the space. And then we have the purple Caribe over here that some start to grow over here, and then it was just blank until there's two last plants over there. I don't know why we have so many that didn't grow, but they've already bloomed. Well, this one has already bloomed. I don't know what's happened to something happened to the flowers on this one. And we have one lettuce over here. I think it's pronounced Jabusic. I don't know. It seeded itself, so I'm letting it go to seed and collect the seeds for next year. And in this gap over here, I tried seeding some kohlrabi, and hopefully we'll, if the cats don't squeeze them all, we'll have some kohlrabi. I've read that they're okay as a fall crop in our area. You guys, get off! No, off! Good grief. While I was doing the weed trimming yesterday, I had a very nice surprise in here, in that I actually found some hascap berries. We have not had a harvest from these because this one variety here, which is the Mr. Honeyberry, and these two, there's one that's not growing very well here. And let's see if you can move these. We got the Mrs. Honeyberry hidden in here. And they're supposed to cross-pollinate to produce berries, and they never bloom at the same time. Well, this spring, we had like maybe 2 days where they were blooming at the same time, and that gave us a handful of berries. I don't think we'll get any more because I don't see any green berries anywhere. But that would be the first harvest we've had. In the 5 years we've had these two, and this one is 4 years. Our first hascap harvest. And here we have our very sad asparagus bed. But amazingly, we actually have some purple asparagus coming up, some new ones. These are the originals. The strawberries planted in between have been repeatedly eaten by deer. I was going to put some net across, but there's really no point anymore. I think these strawberries are just a lost cause. We did actually have some strawberries from here. In fact, you can see one over there. But the plants themselves just keep getting eaten. But the sunchokes are doing quite well over here. I didn't harvest last year, so we would have more this year. And it looks like we're going to have a nice bumper crop this year. Okay, in this bed we have the German butterball potatoes. And they're doing quite well. Starting to bloom now. A later variety. And I'm quite happy with how they're doing. And, oh, what's this? Oh, I thought it was a bug. Never mind. Okay, and in this bed, we had originally on the outer edge spinach. The spinach did not do well at all. I don't know what happened this year. We've had touch and go when it comes to spinach. But I've replanted with a combination of Swiss chard and Bright Lights chard. So that's on each side of the bed. We have the Uzbek golden carrots next to those. And it looks like one of them, you can see the big bugger over there, is going to seed. Speaking of going to seed, these are onions that were transplanted from like last year. And they are going to seed, which is good. And then we have the sugar snap peas in the middle. This is actually from a second planting. First planting, I did 2 rows, and like 2, maybe 3 of them actually started growing. So I planted 1 more row, and that's all we've got right now. But yeah, we've actually been able to harvest a handful at least. In this bed, at this end, we have the little finger eggplants. And then we have the hot peppers, followed by the classic eggplant. And as you can see, they are not doing very well at all. This bed had been surrounded by plastic on this frame over here, but that got shredded by high winds. They're blooming, which is good, and it looks like, oh, what do I see here? What is this? It's black on there. Something eating the peppers. I wonder if I need to put a net around this, because this looks like they've actually been chomped. I wonder if a deer went through here. I don't know, but I mean, they're blooming, and we'll see if we actually get something out of them. And then, oh my goodness, our compost potatoes. They're blooming. And we have tomatoes and even onions in here. This is our Crespo squash. I actually accidentally damaged one while weed trimming back here. So we have 2 Crespo squash on this side, going in each direction, and 1 on that side, getting nice and big. I planted Seychelles green pole beans on each side, and then had to replant them. And there's only 1 on that side, and just a couple on this side, one of which was from the first planting. And they're just now starting to reach climbing height. Pole beans have not done well this year, and I don't know why. Okay, this is our bare root strawberries that were planted this spring. They're Albion Everbearing, and we actually have runners that I'm setting out to root so I can have more strawberries next year. And we've actually been able to harvest some through here. I just startled this deer a little while ago, and it's still there watching me. Well, I hope it didn't eat anything in the garden. Oh, that noise they made. Now this bed is a sad disappointment. I had 3 nice healthy zucca melons planted in here. 1 got squished, I think a cat lay on it. Another was absolutely decimated by slugs. And as you can see, this last one is also badly slug damaged. I doubt it will survive very much, but yeah, we won't be getting any zucca melon this year either. This is the last of the low raised beds. We shifted over to its permanent position. And over here we transplanted the last of our yellow onions. There was an awful lot of them that needed to be transplanted. And then at the end we have some shallots. The last of our shallots are in there. And in the space in the middle, I planted some summer squash. On the left are the G-Star patty pan. I planted 4 seeds. We have 4 plants. In the middle was Magda, and on the right there was the white scallop squash, and absolutely nothing there. So I'm going to see what I can plant in here that's going to mature in the short season we have left. Hello, boy. In this bed, we planted the last of our San Marzano tomatoes, and they're actually looking better in this bed than the one in the blocks, probably because they got more light. And then I surrounded them with the yellow bulb onions, which I'm hoping will keep away the pests and the critters. Well, except for the cats. The cats just lie on them. But they seem to be leaving these ones alone. This bed, we have just melons, nothing else. We've got some Sarah's Choice melons, some, Cream of Saskatchewan watermelon. I think there's 1, maybe 2 pixie melons, and the rest are from the Summer of Melons blend. The last few were planted at the end here. So we don't know what varieties we'll get out of that one. But yeah, get to compare this bed with the other one that has the Summer of Melons in it. In this bed, we've got the winter squash from the Wild Bunch mix, so we don't know what varieties they are, interplanted with Yukon Chief corn, and they're both getting nice and big. The corn is supposed to be mature in only 55 days, which is why I planted them, because it was pretty late in the season for us to plant them. And I'm quite happy with how big these squash suddenly grew. They were looking pretty small for quite a while, and then they just sort of exploded. Possibly because I did fertilize them with an acidic fertilizer. It's actually designed for azaleas or whatever, so it's to acidify the soil, but also is a 30-10-10, so lots of nitrogen. And looks like they liked it. And here we have our other winter squash bed. This bed, I was finally able to move the logs, put cardboard underneath them, roll the logs back, and put some wood chips on each side to hold them in place. But I'm not going to permanently affix the logs together until the fall, because the squash are just too big to reach. I don't want to damage them. And as you can see, we've got something going on here. There's quite a few squash forming in here. When I was dealing with the logs, I had to lift all these vines up and attach them to this netting here to get them out of the way. And it was one of those things where if I didn't do it when I did, I wasn't going to be able to until the fall. Meanwhile, we've got beans planted on this side. These with the purple stems are the purple Carmenat pole beans, and there's only like 4 of them out of the row that I planted. So I interplanted with the green Seychelles beans, because I still had seeds from there. Oh, maybe 5. And hardly any of those came up. So we've got almost no pole beans at all compared to how much we planted. But, well, we'll see what we get of the ones that have grown. Another lovely little pumpkin squash there. And then on this side we've got shelling peas. We had more success with those, although I've had to work a little harder at training them up the netting. Now I need to adjust this vine over here. I want to set it against the wood chips so that they can send out their adventitious roots. But yeah, look at that. Here's another one. yeah, overall, this bed is doing pretty good. This bed with the peppers and onions needs some serious weeding, but unfortunately these weeds, most of them are pretty hard to pull, so I have to wait for them to get bigger. Once I'm able to cut some lawn, I'm hoping to have some grass clippings that I can stick in as a mulch, and that will help. But there's 5 different kinds of bell peppers in here. Some of them have started blooming, but I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping this will be protected, but again, they're not growing as well as I expected them to. Over here, however, we've got this over here is actually just 2 pumpkin plants, and they're kind of extending down this way. And we are actually getting some female flowers, but they're not being pollinated like I expected. But we shall see how they do. These are free seeds that we got. And then we have 2 over here and 2 more over here of the African drum gourds, which are starting to bloom. And hopefully we might actually get gourds this year. We shall see. We also have problems with the few bush beans we've tried to plant. These were absolutely decimated by slugs. This is actually my second planting that you're seeing here. The first one, I think 1 survived, and I think it's even gone now. And then I planted 2 more little rows, and this is what we've got. So I don't expect we'll have any bush beans this year that we can harvest from. These onions that we transplanted from other beds that had overwintered, they are all going to seed, which is exactly what we wanted. So we'll be able to collect our own onion seeds, and that means next year we probably won't have to buy any at all. And over here is a flower that I found while I was cleaning up someplace else, and I just quickly transplanted it here, and it seems to be doing well. And then I've added a temporary trellis for these melons because they were starting to overgrow the sides, and I want to take my time and build the permanent trellis with a lot more care. And so the temporary trellis is what we've got, and we'll be able to compare between how these do while climbing, and I've had to train them up. Some of them were already quite long. And compare these to the ones where the vines are just creeping on the ground and see how well they do. Okay, we're going to go check out the food forest this time, the beginnings of. This entire area would normally be mowed, and it's been so wet, and this area is so rough, just haven't been able to do it. That side has actually been wetter than over here, so that's why I'm going through the taller grass. And you can see we are getting crab apples. This is the tree that has many small but delicious apples. And then these ones, slightly bigger apples. This tree got pruned like crazy last year. I wasn't even sure it was going to survive. It got pruned so much. But it does have decent tasting apples. And this one, I pruned away all the dead stuff and all the branches that did not produce tasty apples. And so I was left with these 2 suckers from the original tree. They produce quite a bit larger apples that are quite tasty. And here we have our silver buffalo berry. This will eventually be a privacy hedge, as well as hopefully producing lots and lots of berries. If we can't use them, they will feed the birds. Again, this area would normally be mowed. This entire side is usually high and dry, but things were flooding even this far. The ground was wet even this far, which is really, really unusual. I don't remember it ever being that wet. But yeah, and here we have a high bush cranberry, and then a second high bush cranberry over here, and it's protected because for some reason the deer keep eating this one, but not that one. So we have that, and then we have our 2 surviving sea buckthorn. And we'll need to get more because you won't get any berries if you don't have a male and female plant. And with only two, chances of having both are pretty low. Over here is where we transplanted our mulberry. There's one in this location. It's actually planted here to eventually block this gap in the hedge. I knocked a dead tree down to try and dissuade the deer from jumping through here. And over time, this will be 15 to 20 feet, I think. I can't remember. It'll be a fairly large tree, so it'll fill in this area and the deer won't be able to get through anymore. And then we planted, based on the expected height of the mature trees, we planted the second one over here. And we'll see how they do. Hopefully they will survive the winter and we'll have bigger trees next year. Here is where we planted purple raspberries last year. There are 3. They actually did produce fruit last year, and then I didn't expect that because I was expecting first-year canes, not second-year canes. We should have had new growth this year, but only one of them seems to have survived the winter. The purple raspberries may not be doing well, but these raspberries that are basically growing wild, they've completely taken over the old compost pile. And we do have actual ripe berries now. I've got this bug that keeps landing on my finger. Anyway, so we need to get in here and do a thorough weeding and clean this up, but we are getting ripe raspberries now, which is kind of nice. Alright, so that is our garden tour for July. It has been an odd year, but we're managing, and most of what we have this year are things that aren't going to be harvested regularly throughout the summer. So it's basically mostly stuff that will be harvested all at once in the fall. So that kind of changes how we garden this year. Hello everybody. Hey, are you biting? You're biting me. Anyhow, so that's the status of the garden this year, and I think I'm happy with it. Everything feels like it's so late, but when I compare to my records from last year, it actually isn't that late. It just feels like it, probably because of all the rain and everything that we had. It's been such a wet year.